Comes to questions for oral answer. Question number 1, in the name of Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Does he stand by his statement with regards to multinational corporations that quotes, "I suspect they are legally paying their correct amount of tax. The question is, are they ethically paying the right amount of tax? It feels hard to believe that they are," end quotes.
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, it's unfair that some multinational companies appear to be able to structure themselves so they avoid paying tax anywhere in the world or pay minimal amounts of tax. The only lasting solution to this problem is collective global action. And the good news is that the OECD is leading work on base erosion and profit shifting, and New Zealand is an active participant in that work.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Do all multinational companies in New Zealand comply with the OECD guidelines on multinational enterprises, which state, quotes, "Enterprises should comply with both the letter and the spirit of tax laws and regulations of the countries in which they operate"?
Good question.
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, they're certainly required to comply with New Zealand law, and we need to bear in mind New Zealand has the ability to tax the profits of these companies in New Zealand. That is the revenue minus expenses. If profits generated elsewhere, we don't have the ability to tax it in other jurisdictions.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
How many multinationals has his government taken to the OECD disputes resolution process?
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime
Mr.
Minister.
Speaker, I don't have that information, and I'm not sure exactly what process the member is referring to.
Order.
The government, the New Zealand model for taxing these companies is about as robust as any developed country. That is, we have tighter rules on transfer pricing and thin capitalisation regimes. If they make profits here, they are taxed.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Does he believe the Australian-owned banks in New Zealand...
Order.
Yeah, that's pretty rude.
Could I ask the member to start that question again?
Does he believe the Australian-owned banks in New Zealand, which are the most profitable banks in the developed world, are paying the tax they owe, or are Kiwis having to carry the burden for them as well?
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I believe they're paying the tax they owe, and in fact, 4 or 5 years ago, the Crown Law won major tax cases where we collected hundreds of millions more out of the banks, and that's right, he did too. And since then, the rules have been further tightened in ways that the banks don't like, but it means that they do pay pretty close to the statutory rate of tax.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, David Seymour.
Is the Prime Minister aware that our company tax rate of 28% gives New Zealand one of the highest effective tax rates on capital in the OECD, and a more effective way of gaining more revenue might be to have a more competitive company tax rate?
The Honourable Bill English.
Mr. Speaker.
Order. Unless the noise settles down, particularly in my left-hand far quadrant, I'll be asking members to leave, and that includes Mr Cunliffe. When I stand to my feet, order. Order. The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yes, by international standards we have a robust company taxation system. New Zealand's always believed in a broad-based low-rate system, but that means having a company tax rate close to the higher levels of our personal tax rates. That's a bit unusual.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
What conversations has he had with the member for Epsom in relation to tax collection and the need to pay for superannuation, a topic that I know is very dear to the heart of the member for Epsom?
The Honourable Bill English on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Order. They don't talk anymore.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Is it acceptable that his government is penny pinching to the extent that the Health Minister now says of Pharmac that they haven't got the money at the moment to buy life-saving medicines like Keytruda, while at the same time multinationals are ripping us off for anything from $500 million to $7.3 billion a year, which is what the Tax Justice Network says New Zealanders are being ripped off by?
The Honourable Bill
Mr.
English
Speaker,
on behalf of the Prime Minister.
Disagree with and rebut the assertion the member is implying that the government is soft on the taxation of companies. It's simply not the case. We have one of the most robust taxation systems for company profits in the developed world. And the type of issues the Tax Justice Network is pointing to can only be dealt with by global cooperation to ensure that multinationals pay their tax somewhere. But for instance, if Fonterra sells $1 billion worth of product in China, we don't want the Chinese government levying 30% tax on them, and nor should they be able to.
Supplementary question, Andrew Little.
Will the government join with the Labor Party and support a parliamentary inquiry into multinational tax avoidance and also stronger laws and more money for enforcement? And if not, why not?
The Honourable Bill
Mr.
English on
Speaker,
behalf of the Prime Minister.
the Parliament has regular opportunity every time it looks at a taxation amendment bill, which are 2 or 3 a year, generally. And if you look back through the record of what the New Zealand Parliament has done, the Finance and Expenditure Committee has supported, as far as I know, every single measure the government has taken to ensure that multinational companies pay tax on their profits in New Zealand.
Point of order, Chris Hipkins.
I did till the end of that question exchange because I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the questioning. But while you were on your feet earlier on, chastising a member to your left for interrupting while you were on your feet, a member on your right did exactly that, to which you, I think, indicated some appreciation by laughing. I just want to get some reassurance from you that members on the left and the right will be equally chastised when they engage in that kind of behaviour.
I certainly didn't appreciate the interjection that was thrown. It should not have happened. But at the time I was on my feet dealing with another matter and a very large bulk of interjection coming. There was a quip that some people found amusing. It was unhelpful and should not have occurred, particularly whilst I was on my feet. Question number 2.